Yeah, so for those who have started on like prototyping on Adobe XD, right, there are actually like 3 resources you might need when you design stuff. Like maybe iOS Kit. If you're doing an iOS app, right, there's a lot of like symbols that are created for you to actually use, and then it will speed up your prototyping process by a lot. But if you already have created yours, then it's fine. But these are some of the online tools you can use. Same for Android. Android has its own kit as well. Because Google and Apple are different companies, so they actually research on design, but in their own ways. So for iOS, they are more focused on the human design components. So they have more like descriptive things to tell you, and like strong fonts to tell you what the thing is actually is about. Like maybe you can see from here, you can see like today is highlighted first before they show you the content. So you can actually see from these kits like how you can design your app itself. Because let's say if I'm an iOS user, I'm very used to this design. So it's better for you to follow this current design trend because users are more they adapt better to your app. Same for Android, I guess. I think Android is very heavy in material design. Like material design, the signature is like this bar over here. It's very common in Android apps. Like even if you code on Android Studios itself, you'll know that this component is like a given thing, right? You just simply have to fill up the what text you need and what buttons you need on the right. Yeah. Yeah, and this mission control is not about design in the art sense. It's more functional. So we are trying to teach design to solve problems. It's not like teach you how to make things very nice so that your users will be very impressed. It's not like. So if you came here for that, then I'm so sorry because I'm not very good at art. Yeah, I'm just very good at solving problems, like coming with solutions and then applying those solutions. And you have to be good with communication as well. Because you realize later on in this course, right, you have to learn how to ask questions, ask the right questions, so that your application can be improved by a lot. Right. I have 3 more minutes to buffer. But yeah, if you guys have read my slide, right, I think this thing might intrigue you the most. So actually, Google Ventures, they have created a way for new products. Let's say you only have the idea of the product and you haven't created anything yet. They have not say a recommended guideline, but a guideline for you to actually bring your product to fruition from just an idea to an actual product. So they actually teach you to create like small functional prototypes, and then you go out, get out of the room and ask your actual customers, ask your consumers and say, hey, is this a product you really want? So I will not go into detail because as you can see, there are a lot of links you can click. If you're really interested in like bringing your product to the next level, for let's say Apollo 11, right? You can actually follow some of the steps here, not every step, because I've tried following for 2 weeks and I burned out totally. So don't do it, right? Just follow some of the crucial steps that you think you are able to achieve. Because Orbital at the end of the day is a summer project. It's not like a life or death situation. Yeah? So the process, you should enjoy it, not how to torture yourself. Yeah, this is quite tiring because every day there's so much things to do. Like on Wednesday, you have a checklist. Yeah, you can't prototype and test them all, so you can actually take your time to read and see how they actually come out of this process. So there are more people coming in. So sadly for this mission control, I won't break down the important stuff for this particular website. You can actually check it out yourself, so that the projects for Orbital won't look that bad. Like 4 years ago, I think during my batch, it's a disaster. Yeah. Oh, there's so many people. everyone join the MC UI UX Slack group already, because I'll be sharing more resources after the mission control. Yeah, I think this mission control will take max about 2 hours. So yeah, you can record it down on your there's a timesheet you have to record, right? So maybe you can put it as 2 hours first. Should it overshot, right? Because there's one person from top word that will be coming to evaluate your current prototype. I think she's a senior person in experience design, so I think her insights will be very useful for you. Yeah, so let's start. Let's start with the actual mission control. So hi everyone, I'm Terence. Good morning on a Saturday morning. Yeah. So my partner in crime, Leslie, he'll be coming later to help everyone with their hands-on activity. So this mission control is not about me talking to you about design. It's more of you experimenting with your own prototyping skills or your own interview skills. Because at the end of the day, UI UX revolves around the user. Like application has to serve the user. Unless you are the only user, then you can make everything. You can make all the decisions. But if you go through with all your users, you realize everyone has different needs. So this mission control is to tell you like what things to approach first before actually coming out with a solution and then bringing it to your customer, so that you waste minimal time, you gain maximum rewards. Yeah, so the content for the day wouldn't be that heavy. It's like stuff that is in common English. It's not like Dijkstra or pathfinding algorithms. Yeah, so our objective here is to actually teach you design in a functional sense, not to impress people in the art museum. So yeah, hopefully you guys can follow me. So general workflow of creating an application, creating a good application is something like this. First, as like computer science students or even computing students, you have to know some design concepts, bare minimum design concepts. To talk you through some questions, should your user really ask you, hey, why do you think of this? Or when your teammates ask you, hey, why do you think this solution is good? You can at least back it up with some of the design concepts so that you guys can agree on some things. And then you move on to implementing these processes. Like let's say you want a cashless payment system for your Orbital project, you need to think of how your users will use it. Will the user scan a QR code, or the user simply has to type in his password? These are things, minor details and major big picture stuff you have to think about. And then later on, you have to conduct user tests, because your own assumptions might not be correct. Because you and your partner is only two, and your users or maybe 100 or 200 people might have more valuable feedback for you. And then you take these results, go back to the drawing board, create another process, and then go back to your user again. If you do this as many times as you want, I think your product in the end will become a lot better at every iteration you change your product. So there are some general theories I'll share with you. Because the study of design is so broad, it has even go to like neuroscience. So I'm not here to share with you everything, just the bare minimum you have to get through. But if you're really interested in design, right, there are some of the courses that I took this sem, which benefited me a lot, especially the NM module. Yeah, if you are interested in taking an interactive media minor, you can actually start taking NM modules, because it really helps shape your thinking into design, into designing good solutions. Yeah, and this textbook is quite good also. I'm not sure you guys have access to it. You can go to this website, right, and then enter your student credentials. You might be able to retrieve a copy of it. And in this textbook, it actually gives you a survey of how design works, human perception, information visualization. So from now, we are going to talk about this concept called the virtual cortex. So the virtual cortex is part of your brain that processes information visualization. So I'm not sure if everyone can see the monkey over here. Does everyone see the monkey? But if you look closer, you are able to see a tiger as well, right? The tiger is on the left. Yeah. So this illusion is called figure ground perception. Like its term, right? Figure means front, ground means background. So if you treat the color black as the figure, which is the one that's popping out, you'll see the monkey. Because the tiger, which is white in color, has been pushed back in your own perception. And whether you see a tiger or the monkey or not, it depends on your own perception. There's no way that someone say, hey, I definitely see a monkey first. Everyone is different in their own ways. But if you realize this, when I say, do you see the monkey? For those who didn't see the monkey, you will start finding the monkey, right? Yeah, this is a concept called guided perception. I mentioned there's a monkey, and if you don't see the monkey, you'll start feeling, hey, is something wrong with my eyes? I don't see the monkey. And you'll start finding a monkey, and then yeah, you end up with the monkey. Because I've so-called prompted you. Let's move on to another subject. This subject is about eye movement, and you can see from this heat map alone, right? This is how humans perceive websites. This I don't know who did this study, but generally people look at websites in the L manner. So whatever important information you want to capture your attention, capture your user's attention, right? You should put it within this area. Let's say you are new. Let's say you are SGAG. You just launched SGAG, right? And you don't have any users. Understanding the eye movement thing will force you to put all the clickbaity, very flamboyant titles on that area itself, so that people will be hooked to your content, and then they will bother to scroll more as they get more interested in your content. So understanding eye movement, right, is part of design itself. And then I'm here to destroy what I said just now. So due to the rise of mobile industry, right, and the rise of mobile applications, people tend to look at mobile ads this way, right? When you go through Instagram, you keep scrolling and scrolling infinitely, right? So your eye perception will be. Let me take my Instagram. You can see your newsfeed this way, and you just keep scrolling. So your eyes are following this direction. It's going down, right? For Instagram, and I think for Facebook also. Facebook also. You just keep scrolling down and scrolling down, and you realize you spend more time on your mobile phone than your laptops or PC itself, because for Singaporeans especially, you travel a lot on buses, on trains, or maybe you go out for a meal with your casual friends and you're not really interested in their conversation, you start scrolling, right? Yeah, so this instinctual habit has actually changed your perception. So last time in the 90s or the 20s, right, people actually abide to the L shape a lot more. But now I think in 2018, you should start to think of this phenomenon. Your website might have to be in a scroll view. Yeah, this is one example of a mobile application that abuses that theory that I've mentioned. It's just scrolling up and down on the mobile phone. Okay, so let's look at this video. So this video is okay, I already loaded one. So this video is about guided perception. Okay, so this is a color changing card trick. So look out for the card trick itself.
Hi, I'm Richard. This is Sarah. We're going to perform the amazing color changing card trick to this blue back deck of cards. And the idea is very simple. I'm just going to spread the cards in front of Sarah and ask her to push any card towards the back. Okay. Now Sarah could have selected any card at all, but she selected the card which is now face down on the table. What we're going to ask her to do is show us which card she selected. Brilliant, I think that's an excellent choice. That card goes back into the deck. Now I'm just going to spread the cards face up on the table with a little click of the fingers. And you see that Sarah's card here has now got a blue back. Obviously surprising, but slightly more surprising is all the other cards got red cards. And that is the amazing color changing
Okay, so anyone caught the card trick itself? Anyone understand the card trick at all? Okay, so as you can see from the title itself, right, it's not about the cards. So has anyone noticed like the changes in the background, like what has changed in the entire video? No, right? Okay, let me show you. Let me resume this video and show you. Yeah, there were 4 changes.
Hi, I'm Richard. This is Sarah. We're going to perform the amazing color changing art trick with this blue back deck. And the idea is very simple. I'm just going to spread the cards around Sarah and ask her to push any card towards the back.
Okay, so I think everyone understands this, right? This is guided perception. It is called. So based on the camera and based on where they force you to focus on, you actually ignore the other components of the video. You actually look at the cards itself because of the color changing card trick title, right? So you actually ignore in your mind. You really like filter out everything and you just focus on the cards. I want to see what happens to the cards. So this is innate in our brain. We can't avoid it unless you really watch this video. But yeah, it's something you cannot avoid because there's too much information in this world. Like if you want to notice everything, right, it's very strenuous. And as humans, we are very optimized for survival, right? We only look out for the things that matter, and then we just ignore the other things. Yeah. So why is guided perception important for application design? Because you know that humans are lazy in nature by design, right? So your application itself cannot be too complex, and it must like fit in into like the human understanding of this world. So this is a bit more philosophical, but later on, if you apply like usability testing, and then you will hit that balance somehow. Okay, just trust the process of usability testing, and then this perception is innate, so you can't avoid it. When I say color changing card trick, you definitely look at the card. Yeah. So this is something you have to take note. When you have like a not so good design and people point it out, it may be because like it collides with their understanding of the world. Like maybe you are doing something that's like very fancy in your mind, but then it doesn't serve its usefulness. Okay, I'm not going to talk much about this slide, but you can realize, right, on my left hand side, the picture's left hand side, you can see that it's hard to distinguish between the elements itself because of their order, maybe their size, their color, etc. And on the right, you can actually tell the elements apart from one another, especially for this picture itself. You can actually tell the red balls as compared to the blue balls, they are different. Whereas if you use this picture to compare, right, it's a blur. I mean this one, it's a blur. Yeah, so this phenomenon can be described, can be explained by the Gestalt principles. And then I think this link is sufficient, but if you want to really know more, you can either go to the textbook I recommended just now, or you can read up on Google. I think there's a lot of information about this. This actually tells you how people perceive the world instinctively, like how, like the guided perception example just now. Like why does it happen? Okay, let's move on to color. I think this is less dry. Color is quite simple. Everyone knows what's RGB, right? But this is another representation of color. It's HSV. For H, it means base pigment. So H, it basically means how far a color is another color. Okay, let me show you the color space to better describe this. So hue itself, it simply means difference in color. Like if I say a color has a similar hue, it can mean light blue and dark blue. Light blue and dark blue, they are very close to one another in the color space. So I can say that, hey, they have similar hue. Whereas if I say two colors have different hue, I might be saying, oh yeah, light yellow is very different from dark blue because they are very far away from the color space, right? So this is hue in a nutshell, right? And hue is used to actually express this concept called contrast. Like you wouldn't want like a light blue background with dark blue words, right? Your words can't even stand out at all. And then let's move on to saturation. Saturation just means intensity. How much color of it? Yeah, and if you compare light blue and dark blue is more saturated than light blue because there's more color. And lastly, for value, it simply means opacity. Opacity means how much of it you can see, the visibility itself. Like if you have some CSS experience, right, you can actually adjust opacity. You create certain effects, and later on I will go through this in one particular example. So this is provided by Leslie. Leslie abides to this 60-30-10 rule. Yeah, as you can see, primary background color should be 60%, and then your other elements can be 10%, and then the 30% is for you to free play. It's like a sandbox for you. You can use it anyhow. This is an example of the 60-30-10 example guidelines. As you can see, like it's actually quite nice, right? Because it abides to the guidelines. Personally, I don't follow this thing, but I think it's very interesting to learn also. And for beginners like us, I think we can abide to this guideline first before exploring like other ways of creating your own, designing your own website. Okay, like what I've talked about just now about hue, this is actually a better representation. This is a color wheel. Basically, it abstracts out the concept of color space, right, and put it into a wheel. And this is for designers to know like what color contrasts with other colors. Basically, if you want to find a color that contrasts with another color, just find the opposite ends. Yeah, from this wheel itself, I can see that mid yellow, its contrast is mid blue. Yeah, this is very useful. And Leslie has put down some concepts of high contrast versus low contrast, which is written down here. Yeah, if you don't abide to the contrast, you will get something like this, which is not very desirable. The last thing I want to talk about is color blindness. Now, this is something that, especially for us newbies, right, we don't really grasp the concept of color blindness because most of us are fortunate enough. The 96% of us is fortunate enough not to have any color deficiency. But let's say your app is like a real-time flight simulation for pilots. And if your pilot is colorblind, then this is something of a grave matter, right? It's very dangerous, right? If your pilot can't see green from red, then you don't know where to stop. It's a problem. So if your app has this element in it, please do some research on color blindness. I'm not going to go through every type of color blindness and what color you should use for different deficiencies. But mainly, I think people, especially men, they are more red-green deficient. Yellow-blue is more of a rare thing, and there are a lot more resources online. If you design an app that is very crucial, like life-saving and all those, it's better to follow. But for normal apps, if your functionality is there, and if you use color as aesthetics, right, then this is not really important. Yeah. Let's move on to the psychology of colors. Very fast. So, who use LinkedIn or Facebook here? Yeah, everyone use Facebook, right? They want to build this trust, so they use blue because this thing is it's not. They say it's proven by science, but I think it's more of the vibe. When you see a color, you will feel a certain way. I think this is how people actually start to put feelings into colors. Yeah, this can be a good guideline, but I'm not as like modern in a sense lah. But I still abide to this sometimes. Okay, so this is more for web applications. So basically, if you want a button to be used, if you want a component to be usable, right, make it have a pop-up effect. So this is what this slide is trying to say. If your button is active, right, let's say you have a sign-up form and your user has signed up for everything, filled out all the form fields already. then your button should be active to tell the user that, hey, click me for the next step. To make your button more active, right, the color, the saturation must be greater, and then the brightness must be greater as well. If let's say your user hasn't filled out everything in the form, you might want to follow these guidelines of a disabled button. A disabled button means you decrease the saturation and you increase the brightness to show that, hey, this is not clickable yet. And this is quite intuitive for millennials, especially like us. Like we know that something is not usable if it's like blurry. And then for web application especially, they abide to this hover concept. Because nowadays, web design has evolved such that some components may not look clickable, but how designers tell users that it's clickable is by the usage of the hover, which is like increasing saturation by a bit and decrease the brightness. So essentially, you darken the element, and then users will know, hey, this might be clickable. For image especially, I guess, some images when you click, you expand. But how users know is when you hover over the image will darken. I think not sure what websites. I think Airbnb does it too. Yeah, later we will take a look. Yeah, but let's move on to typography. This one will be really short. If you have CSS programming experience before, you will know that you can adjust some of the attributes I've listed here. This is a very general list, and some things to take note is just the font size and letter spacing. Font size will actually tell your users what to look out for. I'll show you an example later. And alignment, I don't think I need to explain alignment, but distribution is something that's quite important. So now the modern apps, right, we follow the horizontal distribution quite a lot. For vertical distribution, you only see them in those like very old Chinese novels where you have to read from top to bottom, from right to left. But then I think this trend has been dying. So my advice is don't try this unless you have a very strong use case for vertical distribution, right? Then go ahead. But normally applications are abiding to the horizontal distribution more. And then the last point is use contrast for typography as well. Let me show you guys this website. As you can see from this news website, right, they actually place a lot of emphasis into fonts and how they color the fonts. It's like so attention grabbing. And then especially the wordplay itself. Wordplay, let's not talk about it, but they actually spend a lot of effort into crafting out this sentence to grab your attention. See, there's so much clickbait words like threatening and then risk. But then let's talk about the design itself. They actually use very large fonts to grab your attention. So this font itself takes up like 40% of this screen already. If not more, I think 60%. This is the actual title, or this is the attention grabber they want you to see. Oh yeah, one key thing, right, is you notice this color of black. It's not really too black. Let me show you the CSS behind it. Oh, whoops. Okay, I'm not sure you guys can see this. Yeah, but for websites that abides to this, that uses this concept of attention-grabbing titles, right? Usually the color, they will not use the full-on #000. They will use like #333 or 666, depending on like how big the font is. Plus, let me show you the effect. I'm not sure it will appear here, but then it appears on my screen. If I change it to a full black color, it's actually quite intrusive to the eye. You can try it on your computers itself. You can actually see that the pop-up effect is too much. So when you have big fonts, right, your color must be less intense. Yeah, less saturation. This is just one of the tidbits. Okay. Let's move on to UX examples. So later on, we'll break this few steps down into smaller bite chunks. But then in summary, you have to set goals for each and every screen you design. Let's say I'm making a flight booking app. I need to know when, okay, and my user sign up form, I need to have what elements there. You have to really prioritize your elements. User sign up form, what do I need the most? I need the person's email. I may need the person's credit card at that point, I'm not sure. Yeah, so you have to prioritize your goal for each and every screen. And then you take these goals, your own assumptions, you bring it to the users, you ask them, hey, how do you usually book your flights? And then you show them your design and say, hey, why not try my application and then give me some feedback? You can go around in this manner, or you can straight away let the user test your application already. And then your users will give you some feedback, and then this is a cycle. Constant fixing, constant improvements, and then before you launch the application to everyone, you have to go through certain guidelines, and these guidelines is subjective. In the slides itself, right, if you go to the slides, go to the URL of the slides, you can see under comments, Leslie has written down like the guidelines that he follows, which is quite useful. So I'm not going to go through in this particular session. There are some case studies. So especially for this case, I think when the designers actually design, I think this is iPad, right? Yeah, this what you call it? iPod. What do you call the music player on? I don't know what to call the music player on iPhone. What's the name for it? iTunes, yeah, iTunes. Yeah, I think the initial design of iTunes, right? They didn't have the rewind and the fast forward button like this. It's until when they ask users, hey, what is missing? And then users will tell them, hey, this is missing. Then the obvious step is to add it. Yeah, but you need data to back it up. But yeah, this is something that they did to improve. And then this is just an example. I'm not sure there's a company called Super Duper App, but and then let's skip. Okay, so look at this design. From what I've said, right, you need to set goals for every view. You need to go through your users, and then you need to abide to some guidelines. Some guidelines that you and your partner might have come up to think that, hey, these guidelines will fit into our product. So let's take a look at this. So this is a feedback form. I think this is for developers to see their users. So let's say you got like 10 users on your application and you want to monitor each and everyone's activity. I guess this is an application to just monitor one person's activity, to see his activity logs in your application. So I think Leslie has pointed out that this shouldn't be here because it's not intuitive, right? I will only need the call to action at the bottom. I don't need it at the top because it's after I view everything, my mouse will intuitively go down, right? And then to go to next, I have to bring it up and click next again. So Leslie actually proposed this better design. So why not we just shift the whole action down to the bottom bar. So when user actually glance through everything and say, oh, this guy is actually fine, so I don't need to do anything. So I want to see the next user. Then the person can actually click on the next button itself. So I think I've overloaded you with like design stuff and design concepts. But in summary, right, it takes a lot of smart guessing. It's not just like, oh, after I learn all of this, right, I can apply it straight away. It takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of practice to actually perfect your prototyping skills. Right? It's not like just go through a course and I'm a certified prototyping designer. It doesn't work that way. And lastly, design sixth sense is a real thing. But it doesn't come from like you're talented or what. Most designers, they actually go through a lot of like user testing process, and they actually go through team meetings a lot, and they learn from the other senior designers. So they build upon their experience, and then they are able to do things fast because they are very certain of some things might not work and some things that will work. Yeah. So from now on, you can actually start reading out on design concepts and start prototyping and show your friends. And this is the best way to learn actually. So tips and tricks. So let me go through some of the app design trends now. So okay, this started by Google. Okay, the 8-pixel OCD requirement. Because they found out that 8-pixel is the best way to separate components from one another. It has enough separation such that you know that one part of the application is by its own, and the other component is by its own. And then let's talk about the 48 times 48 pixel minimum touch target. So this is mainly for mobile or tablet apps. So you realize, right, your fingers takes up a certain width and height of pixels on your mobile screen. And they have done some research and they realize that if your component is 48 by 48, it's the most optimized manner. In other words, this is the smallest that your buttons can get. If your buttons get any smaller, right, users might have problems stepping on it. And people, before these findings, right, people have been using grid systems like Bootstrap, right? Bootstrap actually follows multiples of a number, right? But for people nowadays, they go crazy about what Google has discovered. Everything now is in multiples of 8. So Airbnb is one of the companies that follow a very strong grid system. As you can see, I think this is if I'm not wrong, it's like 128 or something. I'm not sure, but most of the components are in multiples of 8. So it really brings out the aesthetics of the website, and every part of the website is very clear in terms of like information visualization. Or you can start using material design. Material design is different from grid because grid is just assigning components to a certain pixel, right? But for material design, they actually assign very specific stuff to a certain sizing. Like page titles must be 20 pixels. Paragraph text must be 14. This is very specific. Whereas if you compare it to grid, right? Grid is just, well, your whole component can be this width, can be this height. It doesn't matter. So if you really want to abide to these specific guidelines, you can go ahead as well. Because I think some of the websites or mobile apps appear to be decent as well. Like the new Google Drive, as you can see. The new Google Drive design is actually very nice. And they follow that concept as well. Okay, so this is something that's slightly off the topic. But from few years of Orbital, I realized that people spend too much time on things that are not very important, like calendar or maybe Google Maps. I've seen one group, they tried to overlay Google Maps with their own layouts, and they spend like 2 weeks to do that. So I don't think it's very smart to spend time doing this kind of things. You should spend time on things that matter, like calendar, right? Google and Android and iOS, they provide their own native calendars. So why not just use it? It's so much easier. And then, as you can see, yeah, iOS got their own set of models and their own way of doing things. So why not just follow natively, right? Because in the end, your users will be looking for things that they can relate to anyway. So you designing new stuff might not be good as well. Okay, so we are jumping to I went through this, right? Now we'll be jumping into like each and every component. So I've talked about design. I think I also like spent some time talking about like you should design around your users. So this is called user-centered design. Like for those who came early, right, I've shared some of the knowledge of Google Ventures design sprint, right? For those of you guys who have missed it, you guys can actually click the link and then learn more about how they plan their whole design sprint cycle. But for the sake of like Orbital project, let's do a more chill way, you know. Let's not sprint as fast as them. Let's take our time to learn how to follow this process and then perfect it, and then we can sprint as fast as them. So let's talk about ideation phase. So right now you have a project idea. You haven't designed anything yet. You haven't like start coding yet. So you have to identify what's your main feature. This is very important because once you have your main feature, right, you can start thinking of like who will use it and what kind of target audience you will cover. Let's say I'm a flight booking app, right? My target audience are travelers, but who will use my budget flight booking system? usually those are backpackers, right? And they maybe they are like more luxurious travelers, but they want to go on a budget on that week suddenly. So these are some of the things you have to take note. Yeah, I talked about like who are your users. When you find out what's your main feature, you will know who your users are. Let's say for DBS Payla, their users may be young working adults, like the female I put here, or maybe it's just like a elderly. And then their use cases are different. For elderlies, right, they tend to want to have larger fonts because they have difficulties seeing, and then they don't appreciate like the very fancy graphics. They just need to know that hey, once I paid the merchant, I see the feedback, I'm happy, and then I'm done. But maybe for millennials like us, we really accepted that hey, my ads must look nice because I use Instagram a lot. Instagram is so nice. Why can't Payla be that nice? Why does Payla have so much aesthetic problems? Yeah. And millennials want things fast. Like our attention span is like 5 seconds. Like I think I lost everyone for the first 2 slides. I lost everyone, but it's okay because I know everyone wants things fast, right? So after you know who and how your users act, right, you can start plotting out this very nice diagram. Create personas, create empathy maps. Okay, let's break down what is personas. Personas is like how your users think. Who is your user? Just create a fake person that describes your users. Let's say I'm creating this social application for creating emojis. I got this social platform for creating emojis. Then I start to think, hey, maybe a millennial might use it. So I started to create this persona and like even give him specific occupation. This is how specific you have to be in certain applications. Like let's say I'm creating NUS bots all over again. I need to know his occupation, right? Maybe a lecturer needs to use NUS bots. Who knows? Yeah, I'll start to list down how this person will interact with my application, the influences he has around him, goals and motivations. So as you can see, personas is more of a text written form, but if your team is more visual, you can actually use an empathy map. An empathy map is basically all of this, right, put into a map itself. Like maybe you want to have more visuals to describe your users. So on the empathy map itself, you can start drawing some like maybe a heart shape to describe like what he likes or what he doesn't like. And these two tools, right, is actually to help you understand your users even before going to them, because you do not want to waste your users' time, and you want to save some of your time as well. So you do all of this planning to understand your users more. And then the next step is to plan how your user will interact with your app step by step. So let's say I created a shopping cart application, and then I need to feel that, hey, what will the user do? So the user will think of what to buy first, right? And then after you think of what to buy, you record it down, and then you refer to this for your shopping. So this is a typical user behavior when my shopping app is given to him. So with this knowledge, right, you can actually start your storyboard. Storyboard is a more detailed screen-by-screen action. Let's say you have designed like some prototypes already. You can start actually placing your prototypes here, and then you can tell your teammates at every step what will the user see. And then this will help you find flaws in your design firstly, and secondly, right, you can actually understand your user more. Understand at every point what will your user see and what's his emotions at every point. Okay, so this is a not so important thing, but it's good to have. So a style guide, right, is more for you and your partner to decide on. Because when you create prototypes, you can't simply use any other color. You need to make sure that you and your partner use the same color. If not, your prototype will be like, I have a dark blue button here, and suddenly on another screen, right, it's the same button, but suddenly it turns to light blue. It's not cohesive. Yeah, it's not consistent also, so it's not really good. So if you have a style guide, right, and everyone can refer. Let's say maybe for more, let's say for my payment screen, I want to make it more formal. So everyone will be using using this color of this hex. Let's say I want to keep things informal. I want to keep things light. Maybe I should abide to this lighter color. Yeah, a style guide depends on what your team needs. for my team, we needed like a range of colors to express emotions. So that's why we chose like this color palette itself. If you want to have like colors that do not differ that much, you can go ahead as well, because it all depends on your type of application, and it really depends on what your team thinks that your user wants. If your user don't really like the color, you might have to change the color palette. Who knows? And then I think fonts, let's not dive into this. But if you really want a proper style guide, you need to know what fonts you're using also. Because yeah, if you want to be really specific. But I think colors should be good enough. Okay, so everyone downloaded this Adobe XD thing, right? It's free, so I think you need to download it now. If you have not downloaded it now, right? Yeah, go and download it now. I think it's just Google Adobe XD and you'll get it. So later on during a hands-on session, right, we'll be using this tool extensively. I will also go through some of the things you have to know before you use Adobe XD. Yeah. So while you guys download, right, let me finish. Let me try to reach the last part. So after the ideation phase, I have listed down personas, empathy maps. I've listed down user journey. I've listed down storyboards. So with all of this equipped, right, you can actually start to create your own prototype. And after your prototype, you can start learning from your users what do they want exactly. Like, has anyone seen this kind of roads before? Like this area, right? There's it's a whole grass patch. And then you see the government, they have made like a round path, right? It's a whole grass patch and you see a round path. But everyone just walk in the middle. I bet everyone has seen it before, right? This is what we call not learning from your users. Right? If the person who designed the route really learn from the users, right, he would have put the road in the middle. They put like the road in the middle. But he chose to put the road around the grass patch, which is bad design. So let's try to avoid this in our application. Okay, like what I said, you have all of these assumptions already. You can start to create your low fidelity prototype. So what's a low fidelity prototype? Basically, it means you're going to spend minimal effort into creating a functional prototype. So as you can see, the colors and all of the things are really bland. But are they still functional? Yes. So in a low fidelity prototype, interaction must still be there, but then you spend less time on the aesthetics. You just tell a user, hey, this is somewhat of a casual prototype. Please give me some feedback in terms of the usage. So maybe when I click here, what's the expected movement? Should I go to this profile screen or should I go to messages? Things like that, you have to have your own assumptions, and then when you let your users use it, see where they end up at. When you observe them, you realize that, hey, they are not going to where I thought they would go to. And this is where you have to go back to the drawing board and do another low fidelity prototype. So this is the benefits of a low fidelity prototype. If you make a mistake, you still have chance to fix it. Whereas if you spend too much time on the aesthetics, right, you'll be very lazy to I need to change again. Yeah, you won't be changing a lot. Or you can try to use paper sketches. Okay, let me go to this thing. I'm sure some of the new media modules, they actually teach you how to create a paper sketch. Because I've been to some of the interviews. So what a paper sketch means? Yeah, let's see this. So how a paper sketch works, right, is you literally print out this piece of paper, and then you cut out the iPhone shape, you start to draw on the iPhone itself. Yeah, because people think that, hey, some of the prototyping tools I use, they're not good on a phone. My phone actually don't show the correct interaction that I want to show. So people actually have a lot of these iPhones printed out, they stack these iPhone papers on top of one another, and then they start showing users like when the user press here, the person will actually change the screen in front of the user. Surprisingly, it works because I went through like two. I help my friends basically, and then I feel that it's sometimes more effective than maybe Adobe XD or Ideation. Sometimes, but most of the time, these kind of applications they improve faster. So I think this will die off really fast. But as of now, I think this will still work. If you really want to spend effort into this, yeah, why not? Let's move on to this. Yeah. So I mentioned low fidelity prototypes. The next step is to develop a high fidelity prototype. Only go to this step when you are certain that your users have no other critical feedback, and you are very certain that all the questions that I wanted to know, I have the answers for. I have the answers for. So this is the step where you start designing stuff for your developers, which is maybe your partner or yourself. Start designing mockups for your developers so that they can actually bring the prototype to the next level where it becomes a real application back with like a database and with proper backend support. Yeah. So this is a very good indicator diagram you can abide to. Let's say you are still at the concept validation. It will be best to not spend so much effort into your prototype. So the fidelity level of your prototype should be average at most. And then when you are about to finish your usability testing, you can look at bringing your prototype to the next level, which is high fidelity, adding all the aesthetics, adding all the shadows, adding all the nice pictures you want. Oh, this is bad UI, by the way. The contrast isn't that high. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, before I move on to the hands-on component, right, this is the last thing you have to know. How do I start a user test? Like, user test, is it going to involve me asking questions only? Or am I going to just hand the person the app and the person will just play around and give me feedback? This is not as easy as everyone thinks. So this is my recommended steps. So firstly, you have to give context. So let's say you don't simply hand over your data to a user and expect him to know what to do with it. You have to give the person a context. Let's say I created a flight booking application. I'll hand over to the user and say, hey, could you book a flight? Try to book a flight on my prototype. And then this user will try to figure his way out to book a flight. If the user takes a very short amount of time, it means you have succeeded. Your processes are short and succinct, and it's very obvious and it's very easy to use your application. If your user were to take a very long time, like 15 minutes, try to figure out where to see the countries, or I can't even make it to the flight booking step, this is when you know you have to do something to your prototype. And yeah, second point, assign tasks. I think I've gone through this just now when I was describing my flight booking application. You have to actually tell the users what do they have to accomplish. This is an easy way for you to test your processes, test your screens itself, and test your prototype. Because if you don't assign tasks, then there's no purpose in testing. So these 2 points must take note. Give context first, like describe maybe 5 seconds what's your application about, and then assign some tasks. So let the users try and see, have some indicators like, did the user ask you questions when he uses the app, like, hey, where am I now? Or does the user have a very good experience? Like, right off the bat, within like 10 seconds, he can book a flight. So while you're conducting these tests, right, there are some things you have to be aware and do concurrently as the users test the application. So after assigning the task, you have to be in contextual studies mode. You have to actually see how the user use it. So it's a direct observation. Because especially for mobile testing, right, you cannot see where your users press especially. So you really have to take note of like where his strokes and where his hands are situated at. And then it's more of an unstructured thing because the users do not know you are observing him, but then you are observing him and like recording down some of the things that he has done. And the first point is the best because if you get out of your workspace, right, and you find users, let's say I created a flight booking app, I should be going to Chinatown to find travelers, right? Now, these are the exact target users. And what I've learned through my experience is that they will give you the best feedback because they are users of such applications. Yeah. So let's say you are a hostel booking application, you should start looking for hostel owners. You should start looking for if you want to do like a good Apollo usability testing, right? This is the best way. It's like you will learn a lot from the experience and you will benefit. You will learn how to talk to people, talk to customers and stuff. And the second point is interview questions. So you can't just have contextual studies kind of thinking. You need to come up with some interview questions. So these will usually fall in place after your usability testing and after their experience. You can just ask them, hey, how do you feel about my application? What can I improve on? What are some of the other features you think I might need to include in my application for you to use it? These are some of the interviewish kind of questions, and they are more structured. And sometimes it's a yes or no, or sometimes it's an open statement kind of answer. If you combine these two, right, I think your usability testing should be sufficient, and you have a rough idea of how to go to the next step. Okay, like what I said previously, you need to have some assumptions before you do usability testing. So after all the findings, you summarize it, right? You try to sieve out these 3 points. Is there a recurring theme? Like recently, I developed a female travel application, and a lot of people tell me, hey, you need to include the personality of the traveler. And this is something that I didn't know. So I've learned from them, and I start to design a personality indicator on their profile. Yeah. Second thing is, are your assumptions correct? Because from all your user journey, your user story, and your personas, right, you actually set your assumption. They actually gives you an assumption. So after your findings, make sure your persona and everything that you have planned out still holds. And then the third thing is more of a informal thing, more of like a vibe thing. Your user must feel good about your application. If your user don't really like your application in some hard to explain manner, then this is when you know you need to do more user research and exactly ask them, make them tell you exactly what's wrong with your application. Okay, let's move on to the hands-on section. Before I begin the phases, right, I want to check if everyone has their prototype already. I know some of you guys have already started to create your own design prototypes, right? Okay, so if you have created your own prototypes, right, let me know. Because this phase, right, let me explain the phases. So phase 1, I assume that you guys only have your idea. So using this idea, right, you have to create user personas and plan out your user journey. For phase 2, is then you start to get your hands dirty. You need to create a low fidelity prototype. This is phase 2, and this might extend to 30 minutes depending on your speed. And phase 3, right, you need to start making friends. You need to go around and ask people to give feedback. What I suggest is, right, you and your partner find another team, right, and then you guys collaborate for this exercise. One group should take around 7 minutes or 10 minutes, depending. Okay, so I'm not sure how many of you guys have tried Adobe XD, but judging from the download situation just now, I guess not a lot. So let me go through some of the key points that you have to know. Okay. Let me refer to my list. So one thing to clarify, right? Prototyping isn't difficult. Okay. This is easy. If you want to do this as a job, right? After 2 years, you can do it as a job. Because there's so many online resources out there. Like if you want icons, right? I recommend this website called Material Design Icon. It's very simple to use. Let's say I want a profile, right? I can just okay. I'm not sure everyone can see it. I'll paste it in the slide. On this link itself, you can simply just copy. Where do I download? yeah, after going through these steps, I got the icon. I can jump straight to my Adobe XD, right, and paste it here. Okay, even before this step, let me show you how Adobe XD looks like from the starting screen. Okay, so this is the initial view of Adobe XD. I'm not sure how it looks on Windows, but I think it should be very similar to this. Yeah, same, huh? Okay. So even before going to my step previously, you have to check what application you're making. Are you making a web app, or are you making a iOS or Android app? Then from here you can actually decide, hey, maybe I'm designing an iPad application, right? And then I'll click on iPad, and I should be able to get something like this. I'll get a screen for free, and then this is your playground for everything you want to make, especially for your low fidelity websites. I mean your low fidelity prototypes. You can just simply start off with a simple button like me. So this is not functional, but you guys can spend more time, like the half an hour, discussing with your teammates and then come up with something a lot better than mine. Okay? So this is just an example. For those who came early, I've already started to explain some of the free resources, right? So for the point that I mentioned, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't like create fancy components for calendars and for pop-ups, right? Some websites have really like do God's work and laid down all the components in design form in Adobe XD form. So you can actually go to this kind of websites, like this one for the Android. I pasted it on the Slack group already. And then there's one for iOS itself. So depending on what you're trying to create, you can actually download their resources and then paste it over to the prototype itself. I mean the prototyping application itself. You can just paste it and then you can use it as if they are your own. Okay, so I'm going to go through something called the symbols. So if you realize, right, you keep designing stuff, there definitely has to be reusable components. Some components like buttons, right, you'll be using it throughout your designs. So how do I actually create a class? Like in your Java class, you actually learn about objects, right? You create a class, and then every time you want to create an instance, you just call new. So luckily for you, Adobe has this function called the symbols. So by pressing this, not sure you guys can see it here, but it's the button at the bottom right, bottom left, sorry. You can actually see their colors, character styles, and symbols. For symbols, right, you just have to select your component. Let's say I created a blue button, and then I want to repeat this around. Let me delete this. Yeah. So I save this component as a symbol, and then you realize, hey, I have it here. So I can drag it anywhere in other screens itself, and then I can paste it anywhere. So this blue rectangular button can be reused everywhere in my other screens. So this is the usage of symbols. So you can start getting creative. Let's say I have a navigation bar that I reuse for every component. I'll just make it a symbol, then I can save my time. I don't need to like copy, paste. I just go to symbols, I just drag it to the other view so that it's congruent. And the last thing I think I have to go through is you can actually go to prototype mode in Adobe XD. What do I mean by prototype mode? You don't want your prototypes to be static. In a sense where users press something, it doesn't go to the next screen. Because you need to show the interaction that some buttons will have. So let me show the interaction here. For this example, I'm just gonna do a very simple demonstration. So when you go to prototyping mode, you realize when you click some of the components you have, right, they have this blue pointy arrow. So this blue pointy arrow is like the start of your interaction. So let's say I want this button to bring me to the next screen. So all I have to do, right, on Adobe XD is to just drag this blue pointy button to my next screen. Something like this. And then you will prompt me to state my interaction. So let's say I want a slide right function, right? I just select a slide right. And then the ease in, ease out depends on what you want. Ease in means it comes in from the background to the foreground. Ease out is from the foreground to the background. And then after you select this interaction, right, you still can set the duration of the transition. And then once you set all of this, right, you can actually press play on your Adobe XD. What is it? Oh, I click on the wrong screen. You can press play, and then when you click on this blue button, you actually go to the other screen. So this is the usefulness of interactive prototyping tools such as Adobe XD. If you don't like Adobe XD, there are a lot of other tools out there. So actually, I'm more accustomed to this tool called Sketch. This is for iOS, Mac OS users only. Yeah, it provides similar tools, but then I think Adobe XD is a lot better because I can show you something like this. It's a disaster actually for Sketch. For interactive prototypes, right, for Sketch, once I show you this disaster, you will know why I like Adobe XD more. Yeah. So when your project gets very big like mine, you realize, oh no, I don't have a prototyping mode on Sketch. This is why I recommended Adobe XD. Yeah, because it's too bad for me because I started on Sketch. So it's very tedious to move everything. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to show you this disaster anymore. It makes you appreciate this prototype mode more, I guess. Okay, I'm supposed to show you guys how to create an actual sign-up form. But I think let's spend more time in developing your own prototype. Why not we do that? And then when you encounter some problems, you can ask me. I'm not sure if Leslie. Okay, never mind. You can ask me, then I'll help you. I'll guide you along. Then if you have some questions that's quite common throughout, right? Then I'll go through on this screen and tell you like what exactly to do to solve some problems. Okay, so for now, for the sake of the class, right, let's start with phase 1. You need to know what core feature you have in your product. And once you know your core feature, start designing. You don't need to be as detailed as me for users personas or empathy maps. You just list down in maybe your Google Docs, just list down like some of the requirements you need, some of the things that I've listed down. You can refer to my slide on your own computer and see how to fill out empathy maps and user personas exactly. And then once you have that, start planning out your user journey map. Your user journey will actually help you with your low fidelity prototype. Because once you know how your users might use an application, you can start putting your assumptions into low fidelity prototypes. And then you test it with your friends. Yeah. So let's start with this step first. Okay.
Like I designed nice already, then can I export to CSS?
Oh yeah, okay. That's one very good point. For Adobe XD itself, right? You can publish your prototype. So there's a publish prototype function. Oh, you mean export to CSS?
Yeah, because what was the point of this?
Oh, this is for usability testing.
Correct, but then so I do nice already, right? Then I have to code it out again.
Yeah.
Is there a way to just so I get the same color and style and everything?
You have to follow your prototype.
Yeah, so I have to just make it. I have to do it then,
Okay. This is a very legit question. Okay, there are some products out there, right, that's doing what she wants. So basically she wants, right, to create all these prototypes and export it to CSS. So basically my front end is done.
Right.
Yeah, she wants that. But then there are no tools out there. Okay, there are some tools that are under development, but they're not released yet. There are some tools that do that, but for all those prototyping tools like Adobe XD, they currently don't support this function, sadly. So this is why programmers still have their jobs.
So, why are we doing this if we can just take it from CSS and just do a front end instead?
You have a prototype because of speed. Compared to coding, right, this is a lot faster. If you're very used to this tool, right, you can actually create multiple low fidelity prototypes and then you test with multiple prototypes. For big companies out there, they have 2 or 3 different prototypes. They send it to 3 different groups of users and see which prototype performs better. So this is the purpose of prototyping tools in general. But right now for Orbital project, I didn't go through this kind of details because I think this is sufficient enough for your Orbital project. But next time when you go out to work, if you are part of a design team, you realize these tools is super useful because you have to create multiple copies of the same application in a day. So you can't be coding and then you need to deploy. So this coding and deployment process, it will take much longer than just placing views into your prototyping tools itself. Yeah. Yeah, but there are some tools that are about to do that already. I think give it 2 years. Give it 2 years. Yeah. Okay. Guys, I didn't go through this thing. You can actually publish your prototype. Once you publish your prototype, right, you can click this button to create a public link. So after you, okay. So assume that you don't have another project, right? When you press publish prototype, it should return you a link that you can share with your friends, or you can share with your survey people, or you can share with your whoever to give you feedback on it. So right now I have a prototype up there. So this is in Adobe XD's Adobe Services Cloud. So it stores my prototype. So this is something that I created to test out Adobe XD. Yeah, so from this link, right, you can actually interact with the application itself. So you spend like hours and hours of effort, right? It's not in vain. It's stored somewhere in the cloud. You won't lose your work. And then you can also show your friends if you're interested. Like for my very simple prototype, yeah, I just make it go back and forth. Yeah, so I think this is the last point about Adobe XD. Yeah, so you guys can carry on in like phase 1. Hey everyone, let's move on to phase 2. So everyone should start working on their low fidelity prototypes now. So one thing that I was like unsure was that you guys don't have your own ideas, but apparently milestone 1 is this ideas thing is a requirement, right? You need to plot out what your target audiences are, and you need to know like how your users gonna use the app. So maybe phase 1 wasn't needed. Sorry, I didn't encounter this. I didn't foresee this. So right now let's move on to phase 2. With your own current assumptions, let's create a low fidelity prototype. Hi everyone, I think we need to start with phase 3 because lunch is outside. So keep phase 3, 20 minutes is max. Let's spend 20 minutes. So let's say you have a prototype, let's say low or high. If you have a prototype, go and find other people who have a prototype, go and exchange ideas. Because that way, right, you'll know how to improve your prototype. So if with an improved prototype, you will spend less effort into developing something, right, that people do not want to use. You'll figure out your flaws, and then you will improve on your good stuff as well. So let's do this exchange. If you have a prototype, go find someone with a prototype, go ask around. If you haven't created a prototype, that's fine as well. You can actually contact other groups on Slack. Okay, so this interaction is not just for this workshop alone. If you have a prototype, you can voice out on general or on my mission control stack itself. You can ask other people for feedback. Simply just post your Adobe XD link over there and list down some simple instructions of what we have to do. And then, at least for me, I will definitely give you my feedback if you post your Adobe XD link. That's something I can promise. But hopefully, everyone in that Slack group can actually give some feedback also. Because by looking at other people's UI, right, you will know how to find problems. And finding problems is a It's a skill set which will improve your UI UX skills also. Okay, so let's do this exchange now. For teams that have done their UI testing, you guys can see our user control and filter. Okay, so hopefully with all the feedback you guys got from your partners,